Are you ready for the biggest surprise of the year from Calvin Klein and BTS's Jungkook? Why is everyone suddenly talking about Japan and the fashion world? What's up with this one fashion show? Click, read to the end, and don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe so you don't miss every next surprise blast. Are you ready to witness a new history in the world of fashion and K-pop at once? Have you ever imagined a K-pop idol like BTS's Jungkook suddenly appearing to surprise everyone on Japan's biggest fashion stage in collaboration with a legendary brand like Calvin Klein? No one expected. No one is ready. But here's the truth, the fashion world will soon be rocked by the presence of the golden mean in ways never imagined before. All questions now lead to one point. Asterisk, what is Calvin Klein planning to do? And why Jungkook? And why Japan? Asterisk, here is such an unexpected moment that all eyes are onto more. Even fans who are already familiar with BTS's spectacular buzz this time confessed, "We didn't see this coming." In a surprise move that has never been leaked before, Calvin Klein announced that they will present something that the world has never seen in their latest fashion show in Tokyo, Japan. And who is the main highlight of that visual and artistic explosion? None other than Jungkook. Maybe you think it's just a show and then go home, or just walk down the runway and disappear. But no, it's much bigger than that. It's not just a collaboration. This is a merger of two worlds, the premium fashion industry and one of the most influential pop stars on the planet. Is this the beginning of the Asian fashion revolution? Or is Calvin Klein paving the way to make Jungkook the new global face of Generation Z fashion? When Calvin Klein officially announced that it would hold an exclusive fashion show in the heart of Tokyo, everyone expected a surprise. But no one expected that the surprise would come in the form of Jungkook, one of BTS's most beloved members and best known for his blazing charisma on stage. Tokyo, with its cosmopolitan aura, has always been the best stage for cross-cultural collaboration. But this time, the atmosphere turned into a terrain full of expectations. The airport is filled with international media. BTS fans from all over Asia began arriving in Japan since the announcement was released. Are you one of them? Not only that, rumors say that Calvin Klein has prepared an exclusive look designed directly with Jungkook. That is, this is not only performing as a model, but also participating in creating the story behind the clothes that she will wear. An unprecedented news in the history of modern fashion. Why did Calvin Klein choose Japan? Why not Paris or New York? According to internal sources, the Japanese are a symbol of the balance between tradition and futurism, two characters that are very synonymous with Jungkook. Jungkook's often experimental looks but still grounded in strong aesthetic values make him the perfect symbol of the generational bridge in the fashion industry. Calvin Klein seems to know exactly that to make a global impact, it's not enough just to sell clothes. They have to create the asterisk moment star. And that moment is now called Jungkook. The big questions now are, kissing face, is this just the beginning of a long-term collaboration between Jungkook and Calvin Klein? Or is it a warm-up to a bigger surprise that is still hidden? Since this official announcement went public, videos of fans' reactions have flooded the internet. Someone is crying haru. Some don't believe it. There are also those who can only stare at the screen without words. Who would have thought the idol who used to be shy is now appearing as a global fashion icon? Not a few also felt emotional because this collaboration felt like a personal victory for the fans. Jungkook didn't just perform, he stood up to represent a generation full of passion, freedom of expression, and the courage to push boundaries. We all know, in the world of Korean entertainment, becoming a fashion icon is not something that comes just like that. It is the result of dedication, personal evolution, and a strong vision. Jungkook has shown it all, and now the world is watching it with Calvin Klein. Word spread that the theme of Calvin Klein's fashion show this time would raise the concept of neo-humanity, an idea of how modern man expresses himself in the digital age. And who better to convey that message than Jungkook, who not only grew up on the music scene but also developed as a symbol of the identity of the modern generation. The exclusive designs are said to blend futuristic materials with a touch of 90s nostalgia, creating visuals that not only attract the eye but also pierce the heart. Can you imagine Jungkook in a minimalist black jacket shimmering under the lights of a Tokyo stage? One of the most touching things was how many fans wrote emotional messages to Jungkook before the show. Some even made special murals on the streets of Harajuku that read, "We see you, Jungkook." A form of love that comes from the heart. not from the industry.do. You also feel that Jungkook's presence in the fashion world is not just a career, but a representative of the younger generation who wants to be appreciated in whatever form they appear, with Calvin Klein teaming up with Jungkook for a project of this magnitude. The world is now realizing that fashion and K-pop are not two separate entities. They are two forces that, when combined, are capable of vibrating the world. And it's not about capitalization. It's about forming a new culture. New era. Jungkook doesn't just perform. He reshaped perceptions of what style is, of what courage is an expression, and of how an artist can be a symbol of cross-border cultural power. Kook released a song whose lyrics were so personal and loaded with hurt meaning. HYB's internal legal team immediately asked for clarification to the wild interpretation of the lines, as if they were afraid that an honest voice born from within would harm the illusory architecture that had been built over the years. Even crazier, in the internal document sent by the second whistleblower, there is a section that mentions that there is a plan to limit the possibility of internal collaboration that invites emotional dependence. And in the notes, it is stated clearly that the combination of Taehyung and Jungkook is not a healthy pair for long-term promotion because it is too strong to attract personal fans. The sentence was striking. They are not considered dangerous because they are unprofessional, but because they are too likable, too human, too real for an industry that only wants to sell fantasies. In such an environment, not only works are constrained, but also their humanity. Jungkook once said in a training session secretly recorded by a former technical producer that everyone is just talking about schedules, cameras, sponsors, but no one ever asked if we were okay. That is not a trivial statement. It was a low-pitched cry thrown from within the golden prison. And ironically, those who shine the most are those who are most often not heard. A former makeup artist who worked for BTS for 2 years admitted to seeing Taehyung cry in the dressing room, saying, "I just want to be me. But it seems like everyone is more comfortable if I pretend to be a statue." That statement was heartbreaking, because the public never knew that behind Taehyung's dazzling smile was hidden the burden of an identity that was always suppressed to fit the standards of the screen. Behind all this, a terrible question arises. Did the Korean entertainment system, and HYB in particular, form an idol not to shine as a person, but as a perfect product in the eyes of financiers? Is the closeness of two young men honest in their feelings so threatening for business structures that depend on total control? Many fans assume that the separation of Taehyung and Jungkook is not just about a media strategy, but rather an active attempt to break emotional ties, create distance, isolate to make it easier to control. The accusation that HYB committed emotional manipulation can no longer be ignored. Some fans have even likened these patterns to psychological cult tactics, where individuals are separated from healthy emotional networks, overwhelmed by performance pressure, and then made to feel guilty if they show any form of disappointment or resistance. And the most terrible? They adored the world, but lonely in his own mind. If Taehyung and Jungkook have been victims of narratives designed to belittle their humanity, then all the fans who have loved them deserve to know. Because it's no longer just gossip or celebrity issues, it's about integrity, emotional independence, and how we treat the people we look up to as role models. Do we love them only when they smile? Or are we also ready to stand when they are silent and hurt? An industry that worships money will never be willing if two people love each other unconditionally. Even if it is a simple form of affection between two best friends, two artists, two wounded souls, and strengthening each other. When Jungkook appeared in a live broadcast on the night of his birthday, there was a segment that was suddenly cut, technically citing signal interference. Whereas a video staffer who is now out of HYB confirmed that the cut was intentional because Jungkook briefly mentioned Taehyung's name and revealed that they haven't been allowed to appear together in a solo project since 2020. The simple statement, which did not have time to be heard by most of the audience, was seen as a statement that could open internal wounds. Then, as always, the uncomfortable will be removed, edited, and covered. Even more cruel than all of this is the fact that the psychological pressure Taehyung and Jungkook are subjected to comes not just from outside media, haters, or public pressure, but rather from the people who are supposed to be their shields, their own internal parties. A former HYB VIP escort stated that Jungkook went berserk in the car after a private meeting with the executives because his solo album plan, full of private art exploration, was rejected in favor of American market strategy. She hit the windshield and cried in silence during the drive to the dorm. "If they don't allow me to be myself, why should I have to perform alone?" The phrase sounds muffled, but sharp, cutting, like the last confession of a fighter who almost succumbed to an overly cruel system. Taehyung didn't escape the restrictions that felt more like artistic persecution. The visual production team claimed that one of V's MV ideas, which wanted to symbolize childhood trauma and identity conflict, was rejected because it was too personal, too depressing, and doesn't fit the cheerful image. In fact, there is a written order from the branding team that don't let artists play too much in the realm of dark emotions, because it can lower the engagement of young fans. These cynical words show how the agency prefers engagement numbers to the emotional health of its artists. Imagine, a person's emotions must pass through the algorithm sensors. There is also the surprising fact of a former HRDHYB who mentions that the psychological records of artists are routinely collected by the company, but not for the purpose of recovery or professional assistance, but rather as evaluation material to determine who is easily manageable and who is potentially defiant. In the leaked report, Jungkook and Taehyung's names were both included in the list of high category, sensitive to moral pressure. Instead of being protected, the sensitivity is used as the basis for extra strict supervision. Even when Jungkook wanted to take a 2-week personal leave after completing an overseas project, he was rejected because the period was too risky for the absence of public exposure. When he was finally granted leave, one staffer in the administration claimed to have orders to ensure that all social media remained active and content release schedules were running, as if he was not actually on leave. And did you know that there was an internal meeting in 2021 that specifically discussed how to avoid too much interaction content between Taeyong and Jungkook? One documented strategy suggests that they are not assigned in the same subunit, and even that their live streaming schedules are structured so as not to be too close together. The official reason presented is to give each artist brand personalized space, but internally it is called the method of spreading the risk of excessive emotional correlation. It's not just marketing. This is a very manipulative form of social separation. And you know what hurts the most? The fans were never given a chance to see this truth in its entirety. They are given controlled fan service, short-lived live, and sweet footage that has been filtered out. Though in reality, many big fan sites were targeted with shadow ban or silent blocking simply for sharing Taekook's original interactions, which was considered breaking narrative boundaries. There have even been reports that at least one fan site admin received legal threats from third parties for sharing moments that were not officially uploaded by the HYB channel. Now imagine living in such a reality, where you are loved for your honesty, but it is forbidden to show it, where you are respected for your emotions, but banned when you want to share them. And when two very close people have to pretend to be strangers because the industry cannot accept a relationship that the label cannot control, that is this the true face of the South Korean entertainment industry hailed as the world's most successful idol factory? Are we witnessing the darkest side of a cultural system that makes people a commodity and a threat? We have seen the light of truth. But if you think this is the end of everything, you are very wrong. Because reportedly, there will be more leaked documents and confessions. There will be more stories to come. There will be more truths that can no longer be silenced with money or power, and perhaps, in the end, HYB will deal not only with internal scandals. They will be faced with a history that refuses to be forgotten. Because when two names Taeyong and Jungkook are separated by the system, the world that loves them will unite to demand answers. Are you ready to witness the biggest fight the industry has ever seen? Leave your comments. Share this story. Open the voice. Because maybe this is the only way we can help them regain control of their own lives. ChatGPT. Even in the midst of the undeniable news, many still choose silence. But not all. One of the sources from the HYB internal content team finally gave a surprising confession that since 2021, There have been instructions from the highest level to carry out character control. Jungkook and Taehyung are not only being watched, but directed with a script that is structured in detail, from what expressions to hold while live, what jokes should and should not be thrown, to who they can follow or like on their personal social media. The free impression that appears on the screen turns out to be just a stage, and their life is lived more by footnotes. Conditional, constrained, corrected to in one of the internal emails leaked to the public by an undercover whistleblower, Army's blood boiled. If we let them vote too much, we lose control over investments. The sentence reduces great artists like Jungkook and Taehyung to mere assets, commodities that must be polished and wrapped neatly in the will of the shareholders. Even when they want to say something as simple as, "I miss the army," they have to pass through word filters to avoid being mistaken for an over-emotional expression. What gave me the most goosebumps was the admission that during the production process of BTS's much-lauded documentary, there were dozens of hours of footage of Taeyong and Jungkook's private moments that were never made public. Not because of the technical quality, but because of the narrative too strong relationship between the two. "We don't want this documentary to be fanfiction," a senior producer wrote in a production document. But in reality, fans just want to see reality. They just want to know how these two beings care for each other, understand each other, and heal each other in a world that is too harsh for even the brightest star. During one of the rehearsal sessions for the concert, a choreographer revealed that there was pressure from superiors to avoid too many physical duets between Jungkook and Taehyung. Quite a normal interaction. Don't overdo it. We don't want the piece to go viral and cause assumptions. But what are they really afraid of? That people would see that love and intimacy could be present in a form not defined by scripts, roles, or gender expectations. That two men can love each other, touch each other's inner selves, without having to be constantly politicized. Even more terrible, there were whispers about long-term career restriction plans. One of the sources stated that in the midst of contract renewal discussions, there was a strategy that included non-dependency framing, that is, separating certain members' career paths to avoid brand overshadowing. Jungkook, as a multi-talented figure with a cross-genre fanbase, is planned to be directed towards Western pop territory, while Taehyung will be pushed into fashion and film. Don't let them cross too often. They have to get used to the road on their own, wrote one of the leaked management notes. What happens behind the scenes is no longer just artist management. This is a psychological engineering that can damage a person's identity. Some former staff even use the term collective gaslighting, because often Jungkook or Taehyung are given information that differs from reality on the ground, just to test their emotional response. Once they were told that a certain schedule was canceled, even though it was given to another member. The reason? To see who is more loyal to the company, said a former employee with a bitter tone. Most painfully, many fans are now beginning to reconstruct the history they once thought was beautiful. A show that used to touch the heart now feels like a curated stage play. A peck on the cheek, a look in the eye, a small